to another episode of the NYC Godcast. I don't know what they're doing here. Hope everyone's off to a great Monday. So today wraps up our series, Catch My Crown. Yep. We were kind of talking. It's been a great series. It's been a blessing for me. It's been challenging, and I hope it's been so for you all as well. But it does seem like this has been a rather long one, which there's 5 weeks. This series season
year.
Yeah, month. Let's go with that. And so but it doesn't. It seems like we've been talking about crowns for a very long time.
Yeah.
But I hope that it's been beneficial, and I hope that this has kind of been our January series to start off the year, but I hope we don't lose this as the months go by. I hope we just keep applying this and refreshing in our mind what we're living for.
Yep.
So today, our final episode on Catch My Crown, and I want to take a look at the placement of a crown.
Okay.
Well, you accepted that rather easily, but we're going to take a look at the placement.
I think I know where that goes, that there's one on my head.
Sly girls these are. So did you guys ever play Sims?
Yes.
Jayme was obsessed
What
with
did you have for
Sims.
lunch? You're like really hyper right now. Did you take that down about
It's the middle seat.
I
It's
know,
getting to her.
you're never that hyper.
It feels like I have power.
No.
So you played Sims?
Yes.
I don't even know that's still around, if that's a thing. It is a thing.
Yeah.
I am like the last person to come to about anything video game related. But so I was thinking about this game when we were writing this podcast, and the thing that I remember about this specific game was what was going on above the head.
The little
Yep,
gem
the little
thing
gem.
that they found
Yeah,
in the
you
room.
remember that. So
It's called something.
the
it
green
the
gem
thing
thing.
about-
No,
it
it's
was-
it has an actual name. I can't remember what it's called though.
So I have no doubt that you think that.
Listen, if I have my
You
phone.
probably named it when you were little. Just
Probably.
called it
Le Blanc.
Convinced Lucas. That's what it is. That's literally. So Sim characters, they had this like green gem diamond thing that followed them everywhere. It was always above their head. And if your character went to the store, there was the green diamond. Or if your character decided to sit on the couch, there was the green diamond. Or wherever you went as a person, this floating green gem was above your head. And it made this giant statement of who you are. That is you.
Yep.
That is you.
You're
That's
not
yours.
gonna mistake it.
Right. But the interesting thing and you'll understand this, the interesting thing about that is the placement. Like, they didn't put that sticking out your ear. They didn't put that sticking out of other places. Like, they just,
The shoulder.
yeah, exactly. They made that float above their head, right? That's where that green gem went. And by that being there, it was saying, this is you. This is how we identify who you are. There's a green gem there. So look at what Proverbs 14:18 says. The simple inherit folly, but the prudent are crowned with knowledge. Boy, I'm not sure there's ever a proverb more needed today than that one. Let's read it again, just in case you weren't listening the first time. The simple inherit folly, but the prudent are crowned with knowledge. So Solomon, again, like we all know, the smartest guy to ever live. He kind of knew what he was talking about. He says that you have a choice of what your life is going to be crowned with. There's going to be something up there. You get to choose what that is. He says the simple, which the word there means empty, open-minded. The simple are crowned with folly, with problems, with error, with foolishness. But the prudent, those who are sensible, those who are seeking, they are crowned with knowledge.
Yeah.
And so what really got my attention about this verse is the word crowned there. Obviously, because we're talking about that. But beyond that, it got my attention because Solomon's not actually pointing out a shiny piece of gold headwear. He's not actually talking about a literal this, right? That's not what Solomon's talking about, but he does say you'll be crowned. And so the word he uses here actually means to surround. That's what that word crown, which makes sense, right? That's literally what a crown does. It surrounds your head. And so it surrounds your head. So the book of Proverbs, it's obviously given to us, for a spiritual benefit, right? That's why it's in the Bible. But what's interesting is just how practical the book of Proverbs can be or is meant to be. Like, there are things in there like about feeding your ox and not like using this animal, like just common sense things, practical things. And like, as I was thinking about this, I'm like, what he's saying is actually very real and very practical, even aside from spiritual, you know what I mean? Because if you look around at the people living here on planet Earth today, the fact is that there are plenty, and I mean plenty of examples. Why'd you look at each other? There are plenty of examples of people who are open-minded or empty-headed. Maybe you should look at each other again. There,
I'm the empty-headed one.
We agree.
She's open-minded about that.
there are plenty of people around us who are just open-minded,
Yeah.
empty-headed. Like they just don't have much going on. And I don't mean that as they're dumb. It's just that
They're not settled on anything.
they're not settled and they're not being intentional with their thought life. I guess that would be how I would coin that. And so what surrounds their life is error and problems and folly. It follows them everywhere because they've chosen to have this open, empty-minded way of life. And those same people constantly find themselves in this state, a state of contradiction, a state of problem, a state of error, a state of foolishness.
Well, I think that's what the world wants.
Yeah.
So like if you're not open-minded and you're not like just okay with anybody's idealism or whatever, then you're wrong.
Right.
So like the world is going towards that. It's not even just some people personality trait wise. This is what they're trying to make people be.
And not to open up a huge political can of worms. But even like with gender confusion and gender fluidity and like just the different truths that they say are out there tonight. Exactly what Jayme tonight. Exactly what Jayme said is truth, because the world tells us there's nothing absolute. There's nothing to devote. There's nothing to be prudent about.
Yeah.
There's nothing to devote our time and effort into thinking that way. Instead, we need to just have an open mind where everything flows in or out as it changes or as it comes.
How many coexist stickers do you see?
Yeah, exactly. And again, not to open this worm, but here they come.
I'm a worm.
But what follows that? Well, the culture is full of folly, right? The family is full of folly. Marriage is full of folly. People are full of folly. There's problems everywhere. Why? Because we've crowned our lives with this way of life.
With nothing.
Yeah, it's kind of a problem. But on the other hand, there's still very few left in the world who've decided to be prudent with their life. They've decided to have some sense left about them. And these people, they make it a point to crown their life, to surround who they are, to identify their life by knowledge. And now again, we're not just talking like book smarts. We're talking knowledge. Like they are seeking out truth. That's what I gather by that. The people who are prudent, they seek out truth for their life. Not just what they're being fed, not what social media is trying to convince us of, not what the government's trying to convince us of, not what our culture is trying to convince us of. We are seeking truth.
Yeah.
And it's being prudent. It's having a mind that is set and focused on knowing what is right. And so because of that, knowledge is their friend, right? It's what they care about. It's their prize. It's their consolation. That's what we talked about a few weeks ago. That's the crown, right? It's their prize. It's their consolation. What do they get out of this? What do they get out of actually thinking about things? I get a crown of knowledge out of this, and it's worth something. So spiritually, though, so that's all like in the secular world, that's true. Like, so like even thinking secularly, like, could you not apply that? So if someone goes through high school and they're looking at college, and as they do
It's bad times.
as they do that, they have a choice before them. They can be open, empty-minded, and as a result, really have nothing to show for it, or they could zone in and focus on a plan, and as a result, get knowledge. So say someone wants to be a doctor, right? They could invest in knowledge. They could seek out the knowledge of being a doctor, and they would be crowned with the knowledge of being a doctor. That has nothing to do with spiritual life. That's just practical common sense. Same with being a mom. Same with being anything. Whatever you are.
I'm a blip.
You're a blip?
Blip.
Isn't that what disappears in Marvel?
I thought they said a blimp.
You're a little small for a blimp. You're a little puny blimp. I see memes coming in the future.
It's a blimp.
But that's what I'm saying. It actually makes sense logically. But then you consider spiritually, the same applies. And this is what really, I guess, pricked my heart. Quite frankly, many Christians live their life surrounded by folly. They live in a state of always having a problem, always having error, always having foolishness in their spiritual life. The sky is always falling. They always are confused. They always are getting mixed up. They just are constantly in this state. And the reason is that they're simple. They're going through life with an open or an empty mind spiritually. Now, I'm not talking about smarts. I'm not talking about
You can be very smart, but not know anything.
It's the intention of seeking truth, seeking knowledge, right?
Something to stand on.
I know
basically.
so many, I'm sure you guys could start spewing names too. I know so many people who I would define them as spiritually open-minded, spiritually empty-minded. They have not taken the time to be intentional and learning
They
God's
just take
truth.
what is said to them at word, and they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's Bible, that's truth," even though it
Exactly.
could be completely wrong.
Exactly. And when they come to church, they're thinking about basketball or tacos or video games. When or if they read their Bible, right, their mind starts to nod off. Their mind is empty spiritually. It's an open, gaping hole where nothing much is going on. And again, it's not book smarts. It's this mentality of what you're seeking with your mind. And they're not holding on and they're not gripping tightly the knowledge of God's word. And as a result, their life is surrounded by folly. When life falls apart, they fall apart because they have a lack of understanding of God and his ways. When times get tough, they're not surrounded with the ability to know what to do. They're unable to invest in God's kingdom or to bring anything spiritually to the table, right? God's trying to build a kingdom on earth as it is in heaven, but these people have nothing to offer God. They can't help build it up because they have nothing going on up here spiritually.
Yep.
That's a problem. That brings folly. And that leads to the decay of God's kingdom instead of the building up of God's kingdom. And so the reason they haven't crowned their lives, they haven't surrounded their lives with knowledge, and there's just a vacancy up here.
A little bit.
So what really got me thinking was the fact that it's sitting atop your head. Like that's where you put a crown. I've not seen many pictures of kings with a crown ankle bracelet or band. Like it's always the crown sits on your head, and that's what Solomon says here. You will be crowned with it. You will be surrounded with it. And so just like that Sims green diamond gem thing, what Solomon's saying here is it's kind of obvious.
Yeah.
And is that not true?
Yeah.
Like it's kind of obvious whether you're open-minded or prudent.
Well, you know people. Like just what you said before. Usually if you bring up somebody, you're going to be able to tell right off the bat if they're spiritually open-minded or if they're solid in their faith.
Yeah.
Like there's no like guessing like maybe they are, maybe they're not. Like you usually know right off
Literally.
the bat.
And like a lot of times, I mean, I talk with a lot of people in a lot of circles in a lot of churches. And like, give me 10 seconds, I can tell you which one they are. And I'm not saying that judgmentally, but what I'm saying is you can tell what they're crowned with. That green diamond doesn't lie. It's floating up there above your head and it's saying empty or it's saying invested, right? It's telling you, it's giving you away. And so it follows you wherever you are. You can't get away from it is what Solomon's saying here. It's surrounding your life. And in the very same way, the lack of knowledge, the crown of folly is finding many people out. And I just want us to consider that, just like Jayme's already said. Rachel really hasn't said anything, but Jayme has said, she's told us she's empty-minded.
Good job.
I like to prove my points.
We all see it.
Yeah.
We all see it. We all see that green diamond above your head. We all see what your life is surrounded with, what it's crowned with. You can make that decision to change that. And the world needs some people who are intentional in seeking truth and seeking knowledge. The sad reality is that most churches are filled with people who have set their hearts on things below instead of things above. Their heart is on earthen treasures. And as a result, their life, their marriage, their family, their church is in folly constantly. It's because of what they surrounded their life with. So we want you to ask yourself today, what surrounds your life? What surrounds your thought process? What do you have knowledge in? Because the fact is, like, a lot of people want to tell me that, well, I just don't have that kind of mind. I can't know the Bible. But then you find out they know every sports statistic there is. Or they know how to take an engine apart and put it back together. Or they know every video game ever made by Nintendo, which is probably a horrible example because I don't even know if that's they're still Nintendos, right?
Yeah.
I told you I know nothing about
The
video
Switch
games.
is a Nintendo.
Don't act like I'm stupid.
You didn't know that, did you?
Empty-minded.
When it comes to video games, empty. But do you see what I'm saying? Like, people want to make the excuse, I can't.
Yes.
But the fact is you can. It's what you've chosen.
And to be honest with you, that's a lot of my life. I did that because I'm not very book smart at all. Like anybody that knows me, I would fail a test. But if you told me to do something, I can do it. And I've lived that. Like I put that in. I was like, I can't remember the Bible. I can't remember all these things. I can't. But in the last, like, even like it's sad. Like in the last, 4 or 5 years, especially, I've learned that was just a choice.
Right.
It's not.
And I think that's what Solomon's saying about. He uses the word prudent, which is not a word we use. I don't honestly like that word. It makes me think of prunes, and I don't like prunes. But I have a word thing. But the word prudent, like we don't use that word a lot. But what he's saying is there's like an intentionalness about it. And so that's the perfect example is that like you think you can't be that way, but you decide to be prudent about it. You decide to seek after and chase after and be intentional about it. And as a result, now you're surrounded. You got a crown
Yeah.
of knowledge. And so,
Well, and I think that's the thing too is doesn't matter what your personality trait. God never intends anybody to not know the Bible,
right.
and He doesn't intend anybody to not understand Him. And so, even if you're not necessarily book smarts, or even if you do have a hard time remembering things,
Right.
He's always going to create a way for you to be able to know those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we don't really have time for this can of worms, but the New Testament specifically is written in Koine Greek, which at the time was like the simplest language man had ever known. And so God made a statement there, and what he's saying is, I could have made this in Hebrew, which is very difficult to understand. I could have put this in some other Orthodox wording, but I chose to put it in man's simplest language so that the commoners could know it, so everyone could know it. But then you look at who Paul wrote to. A lot of times I think we look at the New Testament, we're like, it's like it's in Greek. I can't understand it, right? I have no idea what it's saying. But consider who Paul was writing to. Paul was writing to pagans.
Yeah.
Paul was writing to people who had no background in religion.
Yep.
Paul was writing to people who had no understanding, no schooling. Most of them probably didn't even know how to read or write. And yet God allowed them to understand it. So what is our excuse?
Yeah.
Again, it's what you set your mind to. And so ask yourself, what is it that surrounds your life? With what are you crowned? What priority do you make God and his word? Ultimate knowledge in your life, is it important? Is it what surrounds you? Because the truth is, just like that green diamond on a sim, we can tell. We can all see it. Your crown will find you out. And so today's considerable quote, I actually changed this. I don't know if I even updated you on that. But I changed this. We were reading a devotion. I don't know that you guys are. By Tozer.
I have the other one.
Oh, you got to get Tozer. Tozer's like...
Jacob has the Tozer one, so I plan on doing that one.
So good. Old dead guys are the best. But anyhow, the quote, that's what we're doing here, the quote. So today's considerable, stay with me, folks. Today's considerable quote is by A.W. Tozer, and he says this: the Christian is strong or weak depending upon how closely he's cultivated the knowledge of God. I'm like, dude, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Solomon Tozer. So that was a funny. Okay. Today's featured content.
I don't think that means what you think that means.
Today's considerable,
Featured
content is, this really has nothing to do with what we're talking about. I just love this song, and I keep playing it on repeat, mainly on Sunday mornings. But the song today is Steady Me by Jayme Camp. Really great song. So next month, we're pretty excited. I don't have a charge up challenge because I have announcements.
That's fair, yeah.
But next month, we're going to dive in, obviously, to love. Because it's February. And what in the world else goes in the month of February besides candy?
I was like chocolate.
And red.
Important.
Which we could do a series on red. Do you know how much there is of red in the Bible?
There's a lot
Maybe
of
we
red.
should scrap it all right now.
There's a lot of blood.
Oh, you took a gory turn on that,
I mean,
didn't you?
blood is red.
So we're going to talk about love next week, but not just like your ooey gooey mushy hearts. Like, not your cliche. It's NOYC. We don't do cliche.
Smack love.
Are you okay?
No.
Okay, maybe you should empty your mind a little bit. So we're going to actually take a look at John 15, which honestly is probably one of my maybe most, if not top, favorite chapters in all of the Bible. But it actually has so much to say about love, but not just any love. It talks about this like challenging love that is Jesus based, that is missing, but is meant to define us. I'm really excited for next week. We hope you'll join us as we start next month's series called Love Like Jesus. So this past week, we had on our social media page a Trivia Tuesday question. And so we wanted to announce the answer.
Empty-headed.
The answer, the answer for that question. So the question was this: how many total kings did Judah have in the Bible? And so the answer was, I don't know if we're allowed to do that. I should have asked. Golf snaps.
It's the golf.
Yeah,
this
she
is-
fell for it.
No, I was thinking like the
This is like the
club.
poetry.
the poetry.
Poetry snaps.
slam.
What is up with you and slamming everything?
What would you
Such a violent person today.
It's called a poetry slam. That's when you
It's called love slam, poetry slam. What is up with you?
Jacob
is
said love slam. Oh, you.
Yeah,
She
smacked.
did say
I said smack.
Oh yes, that's much better than slam. Well, anyways, folks, the answer today, we want how many total kings did Judah have in the Bible? The answer is B, 20 kings. So we'd like to invite you to stay up to speed on the NOYC. We've been intentional about posting on social media a lot more lately. So we'd really love to challenge you to help us share that, help get that content out there so that other people can kind of learn the truth that we're learning.
Yep.
But beyond that, on our social media pages, that's really the best place to keep in touch with us. We update the website and a lot of things, but if we're going to give you an announcement on the NYC 2022 or anything coming up or going on, that's the quickest place to find it. So make sure to check out our pages on Instagram and on Facebook. Well, that's all we've got. Thanks so much for joining us for the month of Catch Your Crown. Should you toss the crown to the camera? Would that be a good finale? CJ's getting nervous. Oh, maybe I should put those things back on.
Can I like just poop
If
it?
you can make that on the camera, it will be gold. CJ will have a stroke.
Oh, I didn't go good at all.
Nope.
I hit the camera.
Well, friends, thanks so much for joining us for failure. Until next time, see ya.
Bye.